You know what movie gave me a lot of anxiety? The ending of Titanic. Like the whole you being stuck in a sink, the ship that's sinking, and it's like you gotta get out of that bitch. And then there's people that have accepted death, and they're like, they're just gonna play this song.
Yeah, them motherfuckers playing the music, they just go down with that shit.
Yes.
You guys were hardcore. They knew that there was no room on those boats.
Yeah. Yeah, that scene gave me a lot of anxiety. I'm like, where would I be? What would I be doing in this? I'm like, where the fuck would I be?
You'd be arguing with Rose. Scoot over. There's room on there.
I'd be like, let's take it into a little different direction, but kind of adjacent to what we're talking about. When you are watching a show or anything like a clip, a movie, what really immerses you in the horror experience when you are viewing what kind of movies, whether it be sci-fi, like Aliens, or you look at a movie like Tremors, where it's kind of scary and like the thought of the lava being the ground being lava kind of, and you gotta like the thought of that is scary, but they turned it into like a comedy movie. How do you guys feel about these different genres, and what do you feel like is the scariest, and maybe what's the least scariest? What takes you out of a film when you see it in like the horror genre?
All right. I just listened to a podcast about this. It was kind of funny. I had a lot of irrational fears growing up. One of the things that scared the living fucking daylights out of me was quicksand. The idea, the idea that I could like just walk and then bam, I'm in quicksand and I'm just dead. It's a slow death. You're not getting out of this thing. You're fucked. That horrified me.
Yes.
Growing up in New York City, zero chance I'm gonna encounter quicksand. Zero chance there's quicksand. Zero chance I'm gonna see a cheetah. Those are things I was afraid of as a kid. But I just had these fears. Like, yo, quicksand was horrifying. And it's interesting. I listened to a podcast, Radio Lab actually. They just did like a 17-minute podcast or 20-minute podcast on quicksand, and they were like, they had a teacher ask kids today about quicksand. No kids in America today are afraid of quicksand. In fact, it's comical to them. Meanwhile, for past generations, this was a thing that was scary.
There's even quicksand porn.
What?
That's what I was gonna say. They talk about, first they went to go look up why quicksand was a thing in some generations of Americans and not in other generations of Americans. And what they found was, by finding the quicksand porn people, there's this whole community of fetish. They're like into quicksand fetish, which is weird to me, but I don't know. I shouldn't shame, fetish shame or whatever. Kink shame. There's people that get off by looking at quicksand. There's people that get off by seeing people get put in quicksand, by being in quicksand, by having sex in quicksand. And it's cool. They have like these maps. It shows all the quicksand in America. So you could like look for where quicksand is. And they have how deep this quicksand. They have all these ratings of the quality, the viscosity of the quicksand, how deep it is, how dangerous it is, and they always go in with a rope. They tell people go with a person and go in with a rope. Where I'm going with this is, they also have they've mapped out every single movie where quicksand was in the movie. And it turns out like in the 30s, there's not a lot of movies. The 40s, not so much, but a little more. The 50s, quite a bit. 60s, the peak of quicksand. 60s is the peak of quicksand. 70s and 80s, close to the 60s, but lower. And then by the 90s, quicksand's gone. In 2000s, no more quicksand in movies.
It must have been those like pulp novels and like comics and things like that really like helped this spread of like quicksand as a thing and like the social like discussion, right? Like Indiana Jones, I guarantee you that there's quicksand in Indiana Jones, right? Isn't there a scene with that? And that's based on all those old like serials and pulp comics and shit like that.
There's quicksand in the Jungle Book. That's like the only movie that I know that has
quicksand in Apocalypto, right? He falls into a thing of quicksand. And that's like a later movie. This is already the era where no quicksand. And they even got quotes from the guys who wrote Lost. They were like, perfect setting for quicksand. And that they would say occasionally a writer would say, oh, Kate fell into quicksand, and they'd go and
no
they'd
one's scared of
remove
quicksand
it
anymore,
because nobody's scared of quicksand anymore. It's like a funny trope. Now it's like, oh wow, they used the quicksand thing. So I don't know, sorry, I'm not trying to make this about quicksand. It's just funny to me that I was so scared of this at some point, and now nobody's scared of it. I don't think of quicksand anymore. It's just weird.
Getting pushed into the fucking train tracks is scary.
Oh my god,
nightmares.
What is that Japanese horror movie, or it's a Korean horror movie? It's an Asian horror movie where it's like the girls jump in front of the train in the beginning of the movie, and that's like something about that scene always freaked me the fuck out. I forget the name of it. Like Asian horror though is fucking top notch.
Yeah,
because I was gonna say zombie movies not really scary anymore. That's not really a thing that scares me. But,
I see a zombie, I become unscared.
But some of the flips on it they've done have been pretty good. Like 28 Days Later, phenomenal. There's this movie called The Sadness. I don't know if y'all saw that when it came out last year. And it's kind of like it's very similar to like 28 Days Later. Like people get infected by this virus and they just start fucking up other people. And that shit is frightening because these are people that are like, they're not full zombies. They're not like zombies, like brainless creatures. They are people that are purposely trying to injure others. There's a scene with like some garden shears. It's pretty fucked up.
Fuck.
Sorry, excuse me. I'm sneezing and yawning like a motherfucker. Yeah, so I agree with you, Doey. I'm scared of the whole train push. I don't know. Are you scared of it in movies, or are you just saying a fear you have?
Like, so for me, like I said, zombies kind of take me out of the, like, once I see it's a zombie.
What did I just say? Did I say zombies?
You said train push.
Oh,
train
sure.
push.
Okay, cool. I was like, dude, my brain must have just exploded when you started talking about zombies. I'm like, did I say? All right, my bad. Go ahead.
I mean, like, I find it's weird because I watch a movie that's completely baked out of reality, like Alien. And it's like none of the shit is even available to. And for me, that whole thing makes more sense than some of the zombie movies I've watched. And I'm like, those are more scary. I always find something about being in space, being alone, all that shit is way scarier than even The Martian, even Interstellar. Like these movies that are not scary, but like just the thought of being out there by yourself, floating in a black hole, that was scary to me. It was exhilarating. I was like, oh my God, like I'm feeling so many feelings right now.
Yeah,
when in Interstellar, The Martian also really good.
Yeah, reading that book was horrifying for me because I'm like, it's so fascinating to go through like this guy trying to survive this horrible situation. I would be horrified and I'd be like, I don't know what to do. I just gotta wait until I die, kind of thing. And that fucking freaks me out. Just like quicksand, you just gotta wait until you die.
Suicide Club. Suicide Club's the one I was thinking of. The movie starts and there's like a bunch of mass suicides, and one of them is like 50 some odd schoolgirls jump in front of a train and commit mass suicide together, and it's just like waves of mass suicide taking over like this country. It's a solid movie. It's been a while since I've seen it.
In the beginning of Persona 5 Royale, that's something, or in Persona 5, that's one of the main plot points, is that a train guy took himself out and killed a bunch of people that were on the train. A conductor or something like that. So
I'm not really. So there's some slasher stuff that I find genuinely scary. Like seeing the movie doesn't freak me out. Thinking about this in reality really freaks me out. Like, out of all the horror stuff that exists, Michael Myers is some of the scariest thing to me, because I'm like, there could be a man with a mask and a knife. He could go in a couple cribs. He could kill some people, and that freaks me out. Like that could happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There was
some of the slashers are not scary, right? Because like Freddy Krueger, not scary. I think the movies are kind of goofy for the most part. Jason Voorhees is not as scary as Michael Myers. I might enjoy the Friday the 13th movies more than the Halloween movies. Although that first Halloween movie is so good.
The Jason Voorhees freaks me out too. Like, ignore all the crazy stuff about Jason. Something about being in a campsite in the middle of nowhere, it lends itself to thinking that there's a guy in the woods. Like, and that's what Jason is. He's the guy in the woods snatching people up.
Yeah.
You know? He's climbing in your windows, he's snatching your people up.
But Michael Myers Michael Myers
call your wife, call your husband because they raping everybody out here.
Oh man, that dude.
Anton Dodson, man. What a throwback.
But Michael Myers is rooted a little bit more in like reality, right? Because it's a dude with a fucking mask and a knife, right? And there is something scary about that. That movie, The Strangers, used to be one of the scariest movies to me because there's this fucking line at the end of that movie. Spoiler for a 20-year-old movie at this point or whatever it is. But there's this line at the end of this movie. It's just this, it's basically 3 people in masks just terrorizing this couple that's alone in this neighborhood by themselves. And they're not even actively trying to kill them at the beginning. They're just fucking with them. Like there's scenes in that movie where like they're having a conversation and some weird shit's already happening and they've already made it in the house. In the background of the scene, you'll see one of them like walk through like the hallways behind them. No horror music, stinger or anything. It's just you see them in your peripheral and the couple is just completely unaware they're there. Anyway, end of the movie, they end up murdering them, right? But the scariest fucking line in that movie is they're murdering them and the girl's begging for her life and she's asking, why are you doing this to us? And the girl responds, she's like, because you were home. And that's the whole fucking justification for this random act of violence. It's just they knocked on the door, someone answered, they decided to murder them. That shit's scary. Humans are scarier than supernatural stuff.
Yes, because it's like, oh shit, anybody could do this shit.
It's the most realistic thing that could happen.
Yep.
Like, so the one that rings out for me was the choice that we chose last year, like The Shining. That's a good horror movie because in the beginning you're not expecting it to go the way it goes. You find out some Indian burial ground stuff. Not only that, but you find out that the director kind of tortured that girl. If you look it up, the part where she was with the bat and she hits him and he falls down the stairs, that was done so many times that like her reaction wasn't of her being scared, it was of pure exhaustion of doing that scene over and over and over and over. So I think like there's like an actual scary part of that and an actual like, oh shit, the reason I felt so crazy is because she was exhausted. Like, I guess the director wanted to get that out of her. Also, they didn't tell her that he was going to come, Jack Nicholson was going to come through the door with the axe.
I've heard that one.
So that reaction of her and the kid when that happened was like, it was a natural reaction to it.
Well, allegedly, I remember reading this. I'd never looked into it too much to see if it was true. Allegedly, that kid has no scary memories from filming that movie because they actually kept the kid away from all the scary stuff. Like somehow they shot it so even though he was reacting to scary stuff, wasn't actually seeing it, wasn't aware it was a scary movie. Which is,
I was gonna say I've read that too. He had no idea allegedly that he was in a horror movie.
Yep, which is cool, right? Don't need to traumatize kids to make a movie.
Stanley Kubrick's only a little bit of a piece of shit then, right? But because apparently he tortured that woman.
Yeah,
yes.
Like not just through exhaustion and all of that. Like he tried to put her in the mindset where she would have anxiety and real fears and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It took. I think that she had PTSD from fucking filming that movie. Like
Jack Nicholson went through like 12 fucking doors before they got the right shot.
Here's Johnny. I think that's improvised.
I think it's an ad lib. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm also scared of the supernatural found footage movies. Freak me out.
Yes.
Like watching like Paranormal Activity and things like that, because it's like we've all had that feeling where you hear that sound in your house and you're like, you go and look and you don't find anything and you're like, oh, is there a ghost? Like, and I don't believe in ghosts. I wouldn't say at all, but I know I'm lying to myself because I still get creeped out by a presence that isn't there, which means that I have a little bit of belief that this is possible. You know what I mean? If I didn't think it was possible at all, I wouldn't have any fear. So it's like, maybe I'm like Michael Stein. I'm not superstitious, but maybe I'm a little bit stitious, you know?
Yeah.
But dude, like seeing like the Paranormal Activity styled movies where like things are moving and all this like creepy shit is happening, but it's shot in such a way that it feels real. Like, you know, it doesn't look like a film. It looks like a iPhone is filming this or a camcorder or something.
Yeah. It's a random whole movie.
That stuff, I leave watching that with, I'm on edge. Like I hear sound tonight, I'm gonna, even tonight discussing this, I hear a sound tonight and I'm gonna be way more creeped out than usual. That stuff bothers me.
Yeah, there's some stuff about that definitely freaks me out as well. Those found footage films, man, that's what a good genre. What a good spooky genre.
Even Cloverfield, like all these, like they're bringing me back. Blair Witch Project. They're recorded in a way that are naturally thrilling. Like I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, it's like a movie is like a regular movie. The camera, you don't think about that it's there. The camera is just like if you were in the room watching this stuff. In these found footage movies, you feel the presence of the camera. You see what you can see, and you're afraid of everything you can't see. You're like, what's happening everywhere else in this room right now? Because I'm only getting this one view. And I don't know, something is interesting about that because the filmmakers actually changed nothing about filming, but knowing that it's a found footage makes you think of the presence of the camera.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, there's something about this super fascinating.
One honorable mention, supernatural weather movies can be naturally scary because of like the size of something, whether it be, so like there was for me when I was a child in the 90s, something about tornadoes and twisters. real big. They came out with the movie Twister. Bro, I love that movie so fucking much, but it scared me because it's like the raw power of nature. But what a cheesy fucking movie that also was like kind of scary. They had that scene where they're in the drive-thru and there's like a fucking F5 coming behind it and The Shining is playing. There is something about that scene where he's coming through the door with the axe, but the tornado is behind the screen. So the tornado starts to tear the screen off. It is cinema.
I'm going to have to go and rewatch Twister. It's been so damn long.
It's a hell of a fucking ride. Okay, like Wichita, they go through Oklahoma. It's a bunch of redneck looking people. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I was afraid of watching Twister as a kid. Just watching a tornado freaked me out. It freaked me out so much I couldn't. I think there's a movie, Oliver Twist, has nothing to do with the Twister. Couldn't watch that either. I was like, Oliver Twist? Nah.
You know, that'd be a fun little like mashup. They could put a Twister into that movie.
I don't even know. Oliver Twist is about like an orphan kid.
It's like Victorian children on the streets or something, like Victorian street-urchins.
Oi, kicking.
Oi, kicking. Yeah.
And then the F5 comes through.
Yeah, like Interstellar has a really fucked up supernatural. Well, no, not supernatural. What would you call it? Like a weather,
like a supernatural weather. Yes,
right. Like the world is just falling apart, and they need to colonize somewhere else. Like that's scary. Almost like some would say, almost like quicksand. They're just waiting for their death in this movie. Maybe we need to bring quicksand back. All right?
You guys remember?
You talked about that quicksand kink thing. And did you ever read Firestarter by Stephen King? There's a scene in there. There's a scene in that book where like the father, because he has the ability to push like suggestions into people's heads, right? But sometimes it can cause these ricochets, right? It'll trigger like these subconscious desires that people have, and they'll just start bouncing around their heads. That's why he called them ricochets, and they'll become fixated on these things. And there's a guy that he pushes when they're at this military base, and this guy has this weird interest in garbage disposals. And it's almost like a sexual interest that he has. And the guy ends up killing himself with a garbage disposal. And the way that Stephen King describes the scene is very oddly sexual. And there's kind of a weird link with some kink culture and fear and pain and things like that. That's popped into my head. Firestar is kind of a scary book. Not really, but like.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But other like weathery situations, Deep Blue Sea. I was afraid. I like that movie has put like a medium fear of boats and ships in my heart.
Yeah,
like,
sharks do freak me out a little bit, which is goofy because I understand the chances of me getting bit by a shark are so fucking tiny, and I still go into the goddamn ocean. But I'll get a little nervous. Something brushes my leg when I'm in the ocean. You bet your ass that I'm checking to make sure it's not a shark.
Oh yeah, but if you find that it's a shark, you can't swim away. Mm-mm. First, you need to look around, see who's swimming with you, and then you need to grab onto them. And so that's what Tony wanted me to do when we saw that stingray. I'm like, what do you want from me? I need to swim away. We're going to die here. Oh, you left me, bitch. I don't know what's wrong with this.
He wants to ride you SpongeBob style, like Hasselhoff, right through the water.
That looked fun. I want to ride Hasselhoff.
You know what movie gave me a lot of anxiety? The ending of Titanic. Like the whole you being stuck in a sink, the ship that's sinking, and it's like you gotta get out of that bitch. And then there's people that have accepted death, and they're like, they're just gonna play this song.
Yeah, them motherfuckers playing the music, they just go down with that shit.
Yes.
You guys were hardcore. They knew that there was no room on those boats.
Yeah. Yeah, that scene gave me a lot of anxiety. I'm like, where would I be? What would I be doing in this? I'm like, where the fuck would I be?
You'd be arguing with Rose. Scoot over. There's room on there.
I'd be like,
I'd be like, yo, I met your ass yesterday. Fuck you. I'm getting on this motherfucking door. Like, I'd make that sacrifice for my wife or kid. You know what I'm saying? Rose, you rich ass. I'm poor, I'm broke as a joke. I've had a hard life. I ain't giving up this door for your ass.
Yo, I'd be
you better find
needs.
yourself a boat. These
I'd be
motherfuckers
special
will put you
needs
on a boat.
all day.
Toey's pretending to be he's pretending to be a kid. He's walking on his knees with a big oversized coat.
Yeah, right. Them people back in the day, they were down with fucking what's the shit? They would have let you die on the boat. They're like one less special needs person. Right?
For some reason, I think that us, if we were on that ship, we would probably have been in like that room down at the bottom, shoveling the coal in. We would have been dead already.
The fucking
we're not
boiler
making it
room?
off that boat. The boiler room.
Shoveling shit. Yeah, that's terrible.
If we were on that ship, that's where they would have had us.
Another
the day after tomorrow, where like climate change is just the whole world starts to freeze in some areas. Tidal waves are happening elsewhere. There's like 17 tornadoes ripping the West Coast apart, and all these earthquakes. The whole world is like just getting destroyed. That movie freaked me out.
I'm honestly surprised that we haven't seen like a resurgence in like global disaster movies like that. Like it's on everyone's mind. Even the people that don't believe in climate change, they see the shit that's happening. They're just putting their heads in the sand.
Yeah.
Dude, I watched Contagion the other day.
I don't think I've seen that
a couple weeks ago. Really fucking good. It is maybe too uncomfortable to watch now after the pandemic. Yeah. But it is COVID. It's a movie about COVID, bro. Before COVID ever happened. It's the same shit. Except people are fucking dying like a lot in this movie. But like they go through all the outbreak. They talk about all the conversations we had during COVID. And yeah, it's just like kind of freaky that some virus is just running amok in society and killing people, how fast it spreads, how long is it incubating in a person, there's no cure, no vaccine. Like, they go through all of that stuff. I don't know, freaks me out. The whole COVID shit really freaked me out. Towards the beginning I didn't care so much. Then it was like, oh shit, we're going into lockdown, this seems serious. Then I didn't care too much. I was just home, but I don't know.
There was a period where I was scared, where I was wearing rubber gloves and masks, and I was it would look like.
I mean, you live in like the dangerous city for a disease that spreads through like contact like that.
Yeah, there was like a 2-month, 3-month period where I was just like shitting my pants because I didn't know what the fuck to do. So you like over prepared, and it's all you could do.
Just shat in the toilet, bro. Your pants is not a good place to shit.
But once again, the scariest thing in movies is people, not ghosts, not demons, just other people.
Yep. We'd like to thank you guys for making it through.
You're welcome, though.
This beauty of an episode. We know it's not your normal. If you've been here this long, hit that like button. And you should probably already have told someone or maybe yelled it out during climax. Let them know about our podcast. Tell them that, we're where it's at.
If kids are still passing notes in class, write the One Up podcast, pass it down.
Yeah. Stick it in your child's lunchbox and force him to share it to his friends.
Carve us into a school desk or a bench, a tree.
Yeah. And remember,
school desk carving's underrated.
It was a good way.
I had so much fun sitting at desks throughout my life, just seeing who wrote what on these desks, what's carved into this, who did this thing. Fascinating.
There were some masterpieces that I was like, how did you even do this?
How'd you not get bagged doing this? Scraping? They're fucking wood carving this desk up. Like, so when they started making those like other material, like stone desks and shit, those shits were whack.
It's like polyurethane.
You lost all the feeling of sitting at a school.
They're
desk,
doing it Shawshank Redemption style. They're carving and then they put it into like their pocket so they can go dump out the wood later on. Man, we're doing some good references today, huh?
Yeah. No, this is a special one. What I would call a doozy. Huh?
Yeah.
Because in the car industry, we call things titties. But in the podcasting industry, we might call them a doozy. All right? So I want everyone.
I see the Tony connection. I don't understand.
I don't know
what you're saying.
I just did it.
All right, get us out of here, though.
Everyone, you got to remember to always one up yourselves, guys. You guys have a good time. And goodbye.
Peace.